I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Wanna put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things, chasing big dreams. Yeah, it's all real, this life's all that it seems. All the chicks scream, all the dudes yell. This is just what I do and I do it well. With the flow fresher than the new shoe smell. Going through hell, but homie, keep going. You know the saying, you can reap what you sow in. So I don't chase girls, I just chase dreams. Play the same game, but we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Robbie 2016. Like a phone to die, put me in charge. I'm a general, from the front, I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Oz Digital Studio. We're from the Shrimp Tank down here in Boca Raton, Florida, in collaboration with the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. If you heard me say good afternoon, that is correct, because we have shifted our show time. It is no longer going to air at 10 a.m. in the morning. This year in 2024, we are going to air it at 2 p.m. This is very important because in about 2-3 weeks, we are going to shift our studio to a live audience with FAU students. And there's going to be a live Q&A from these students, and it's going to be something spectacular to witness. Kevin, are you excited for our new studio?
Yeah, Happy New Year to all of our listeners and all of our students. Jason's right. We're going to be kicking off the podcast moving forward at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays in our brand new studio. So we are still looking for partners and sponsors who may want to get involved in dressing up that fantastic movie theater we've got dedicated for this right across the hall. So a lot of new and exciting things. Nothing going on yet. Campus is a little bit dead today, so things are slow. The students aren't back in session until Monday. But as usual, we've always got a lot going on. Our business pitch competition is open for applications, right? So great cash seed funding prizes there every single year. We're taking applications for our Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program. Remember, folks, that's fully subsidized by Veterans Florida. So any veteran who's interested in starting or growing a business, they can participate in that comprehensive 8-week-long program that includes mentorship, totally free of charge. So if you're a veteran out there looking to start a business, that is perfect for you.
Yeah, there's always so much exciting stuff going on around Boca Raton, Florida, in collaboration with FAU. And of course, if this is your first time tuning into the Shrimp Tank, this is the show where street smarts and book smarts collide. We get to interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs from South Florida. We had an amazing 2023. We had over 50 episodes last year, and some incredible stories really stuck out to me. Was there any particular ones, Kevin, before we talk about today's guest, that stuck out that were just absolutely amazing?
No, it's hard. It's hard because some of them feel like they're so long ago, but they're all in 2023. I don't know. Whoever
the dental one stuck out to me. Remember that, they created this whole entire platform. They raised a lot of capital, and you just don't think like, it's like the Airbnb of hygienists, right? And they were able to really match these hygienists to the dental offices that had a major issue with staffing, and staffing is a major issue for accountants, lawyers. We're going to learn a lot about that today, with our guest today, financial service professionals. But it was really interesting how their platform really, filled the need.
I mean, there's so many interesting. Just last week, we learned so much about toads and toad control and anything and everything we've had on the show. It's really crazy. So let's introduce who we've got today.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Richard Segal in the Shrimp Tank studio today. He is founding partner of RFB Fisher Potter and Hodas. See, that was a long, right. Yeah, lawyers tend to always add a lot of different names. Of course, it's always interesting. We always ask a lot of our past guests, like why so many names when it comes to lawyers and those type of companies, of course. And he's also the chairman of the Miami Chamber of Commerce. So we're excited. He's
Miami Beach Chamber
of Commerce. This is what happens when you start shifting the show to 2:00.
No problem.
You need your Starbucks. You need to get the groove going when you're starting to do a show in the afternoon. Well, Richard, to kick things off, tell us about what's going on right now in your world.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. Let's keep the energy going. It's New Year's, right? And I always say, how long do you keep going with the New Year's of the Happy New Year? But I'll say Happy New Year to everyone, and let's keep the energy going all the way through 2024. Why not? So I am Richard Segal. I'm the founding partner of RFB Fisher Potter Hodas. We really do two things: complex matrimonial dissolutions of marriage and business litigation. And then on a philanthropic community-based platform, I've been actively involved in the Miami Beach community my entire life. It really comes from my grandfathers and also my parents, and my grandparents came down to Miami Beach in the 1940s. And so from a philanthropic give back standpoint, I am now the chair of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. Not really sure how I got there. I guess I've been dedicated to the organization long enough that they've sort of let me creep up into it. And I keep waiting for them to tell me, sorry, we're not sure how you got here, sir. But I'm hoping that for 2 years, I really do hold the position well and do it justice, not just for the Chamber of Commerce, but all of Miami Beach. It means a lot to me, and it's extremely important. And then on the legal side, I'm happy to answer anything and everything. I'm a co-managing partner of our Miami office. We definitely see interesting things on the Miami matrimonial side, and certainly in the influx of high net worth individuals moving to the South Florida area, it's only become that much more interesting. So thank you for having me, gentlemen. Truly appreciate it.
So when you talk about the business litigation aspects of the law firm, is that in relation to matrimonial dissolutions, or is that kind of a separate thing?
It's actually a fantastic question that you picked up on. So we handle matrimonial litigation, which is really dissolutions of marriage. That being said, in light of the type of clientele that we have, we handle, in essence, some of their most important moments in their lives. And we really become their concierge attorneys afterwards, in which they confide in us. And because of that, and because of the people that we're representing that often have a lot of different businesses and, family offices and things of that sort, they often come back to us afterwards for disputes that are related to their business or contractual disputes or real estate disputes. So we really primarily focus in on matrimonial litigation. But that being said, we become the concierge attorney to our clients and then end up handling their business litigation as well, which is more of your traditional trial work, because they're happy with our services and we've developed that confidence.
Yeah. And I asked that question for a very specific reason, right? I work with so many business owners, and a lot of times when I get to a particular point, I might get to a point where I say, yeah, you really need an attorney for that one, right? Like, my expertise ends. The only legal stuff that I know for sure is that it's illegal for me to give legal advice. I know that one, which I've been taught by an attorney.
Smart.
So I know when to turn it over. But you really want to know, there's so much specialization now in legal advice and help. From my perspective anyways, it's not as simple as go find an attorney. I work with so many founders who oftentimes working with the wrong attorneys. You need the attorney for the thing you're working on. Is it securing a patent? And then in what field? Right? Is it a law firm that has experience in that field to get that patent, to get that done? If you're fundraising, right? Oh boy, I see this all the time, right? I'll say, you need an attorney to help you with the terms and your term sheet and the agreements and the cap table. Just trust me. You want to
Sure.
make sure you do this right. And I'll be like, okay, perfect. My uncle's an attorney. He does his real estate. I'll get him. No. Don't do that. You might save money on the attorney bills, but you may end up losing your company.
That's one of my biggest pet
something
peeves,
wrong,
Kevin.
right?
You know how many
gotta
people
get the right firm.
You know how many people, of course, I'm a financial advisor as well as everything I'm doing with Owl. And how many people would say, oh, I have a friend that does this, that's in the family. And I'm just like, be careful, right? When it comes to family people, because I would suggest like, hey, you need some legal documents in your will, you need a healthcare proxy. And it's just like they just would cover like, well, the attorney does it all. And I'm like, no. I was like, time out. There's a lot of personal issues that are going to be discussed. Do you recommend working with family when it comes to law?
Couldn't agree more in both facets. Number one is, I tell people all the time, at the end of the day, if for some reason you had to have brain surgery or heart surgery, it's not that the doctor that would work on your foot isn't a absolutely sophisticated, really, really good doctor, even if it's your uncle. But you wouldn't have the doctor that only works on feet go ahead and do your heart surgery or your brain surgery. It's actually the same way in the practice of law. But for whatever which reason, there has been this conception of like, oh, but I know the person who's down the street who does some form of the practice of law, so I'm going to go to them. Wrong. That's not a good way of figuring out who's best suited for you. So I would totally agree. Do your research ahead of time, find the attorney in the law firm that specifically handles and practices exactly what it is that you're looking for. Even if it means that you're spending a little bit more upfront, you will be super thankful in the long run that you are working with someone, the person who operates on hearts every single day when you need heart surgery.
I also find it doesn't ever get done. What ends up happening is like 6 months down the road, I bring it back up, and like, oh yeah, I'm set to do it because it's not taken as serious with family members. So it's always like the free service because they don't want to pay, of course. So then it always gets kicked down, the runway, right? And it never happens.
I I understand that, and actually, we've gotten a lot of cases in which people have tried to do it sort of like with their local person or their neighborhood person or their family or their friend, and ultimately they call us and they're 3 months in, they're 6 months in, and they say, "Listen, my case hasn't gone anywhere. We need complete triage. We need someone to jump on this immediately." And oftentimes, within the first few weeks, they're super excited about how responsive our firm is, which is, just on my team alone, we have a 24-hour rule. Anything that goes and gets filed, any communication, any correspondence, it has to get to the client within 24 hours. And that way they're caught up to speed on an everyday basis of exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, and another thing that I've witnessed too, and I get it. It's relationship based and a function of convenience. Is you may already be working with an attorney or a firm for one specific reason, right? Like setting up your company, right? And most any kind of corporate law entity can do that. That's very simple work. And then you get to the point where, okay, now it's time to fundraise. I'll just have them do that too. And it's like, well, maybe who's doing it? Have they done that before? It's okay and sometimes necessary to say, yeah, I have them for the corporate stuff, but I'm going to go out and use someone who specializes in XYZ. And most of the people I know that are attorneys are very much collaborative, right? Even if they work in similar spaces like intellectual property. I know several instances in which one firm has, reached out to another one because it dealt with a lot of molecular science and biopharmaceuticals. And they were like, okay, this has gotten to beyond our scope, going back and forth with the patent office. Let's subcontract with another group that they're up in Boston. All they do is biomedical stuff. That's it. Let's just get them. There was one more response to the patent office and they got the patent. They just need to bring in the bigger guns and the deeper science. So that's fine too.
So that's exactly correct. Number one is people often think, oh, there's a lot of attorneys out there that we shouldn't be friendly or amicable to each other. It's competition. I couldn't disagree anymore. The reality is within our law firm, the best form of referrals come through other attorneys and other attorneys that respect what we do and know exactly what we do. And in fact, most of the time that they're sending us business, they send us the business that we're looking for because they know the game. They know how we are handling certain cases and what we're looking for, and they present it very well. So that's number one. Number two is in our firm, we are very, very careful, and we tell people all the time, we are trial attorneys. We handle anything within the civil side of the courtroom. If for some reason a client was speaking to us, for example, about a DUI or something on the criminal side, we're very quick to tell them, sorry, that's not what we do. We can put you in the right hands of somebody else. Specifically also on the transactional side, we don't do anything on real estate transactions, corporate filings, or anything of the like, and we're careful to tell them what we do. I always say, lay out the menu of exactly what we do so that the client can understand what they can order and what we provide here. The best type of attorney is the one that's transparent and specifically tells the client, you know what? I'm happy that you appreciate us. I'm happy that you're confident in what we do, but we don't handle that. And you have to do that because if you don't handle it, there definitely is a firm that is a niche practice that does, and they for certain can do it for the client. And you know what? You can get a referral out of it. So that's a great idea too. And that's why I think always it's a good idea to have amicable, good relationships with all sorts of firms.
All right, let's switch gears for a minute and talk a little bit about your work as the chair of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. So how did you come to get involved with that?
So if you see me smiling, it's because I love the organization. I love that they've allowed me to become the chairman and take over for the next 2 years. I do it with my CEO, who's recently appointed. Her name is Brittany Basant. I suggest everyone go and look her up on Instagram, social media. She's an absolute rock star. She really makes me look good. I get to go around and wave. She really does all the hard work. But putting that aside for a second, the reason why I smile is the first time that I got involved in this organization is now over a decade plus ago. I walked into the boardroom having no understanding of really what the organization truly was doing, but I knew that there was a business component to it and that it was in Miami Beach, and Miami Beach was important to me. When I walked into the boardroom and I looked up in the meeting, there was a plaque on the wall that said, "Thank you to all the various founders of the organization for helping build this building." And I'm looking, there's about 100 people on the plaque, and I'm just reading through it, big names, people that were known in Miami Beach, and then just everyday people. And I see there all of a sudden Harold J. Segal, which is my grandfather, who at that time had been long passed for 10 or 20 years. I had no idea that he was a part of the organization. He died when I was 16 years old, so I had no idea that he even was affiliated with the Chamber of Commerce, let alone contributed to the building that I was sitting in. And it was in that moment where I realized not only am I doing a lot for Miami Beach, but I'm going to make sure that I devote myself to this organization. And it makes me proud to be able to be at podcasts like your own and be able to talk about, after many years now being the chairman of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce.
See, I'm a little bit surprised, and that's why I ask. You seem passionate about it, and when I think of that, I would have some concern. I'm not involved with any chambers, but it might be akin to like an HOA, right? But instead of angry homeowners complaining all the time, it would be angry business owners or something like that. And then there's a reason, very much a reason, why I'm not involved with my HOA. So you don't get a lot of that. You find it an enjoyable experience and generally positive.
So what I love about the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce is we try to meet the business organizations, not just the ones like, the Fontainebleau and Mount Sinai Hospital, which are wonderful members of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce and huge employers of Miami Beach, but also the everyday, the small mom and pops, the little restaurant that's off of Lincoln Road, the little coffee place that serves cafecito on Washington or Collins. And when they're coming in and they're opening their business for the first time, we go there and we do what's called a ribbon cutting in Miami Beach. We try to bring commissioners, we try to bring Mayor Minor, who's the current mayor of Miami Beach, and we let them know that Miami Beach is here for them from day one. And the best thing and the most rewarding thing for me is watching that business grow over time. Don't get me wrong. Are there times and are there moments where businesses come to us and we have to troubleshoot issues for them? Sure. Just like in my practice, not every single moment of the practice is all sunny and beautiful, but that's the beautiful thing about being a chairman, is turning upside down those moments and then seeing 2 years later a business like that flourishing, and they come to you and say, "I really appreciated when you helped me walk me through that permitting process, or you made an introduction to meet a commissioner on a bill that was being passed in an effort of helping my organization."
Yeah, and I would encourage our listeners, make your way down to Miami Beach. It's funny, I was just down there. It's so close, and there's so much going on. I don't know if I did anything that would be strictly considered Miami Beach, but I visited Vizcaya, which I'd never
Sure.
been to, and then there's a special light show on Jungle Island, Luminosa, and it's an hour away, and you can run down there, make a nice trip of it. So much going on. And we'll be down there in April. I'm guessing Al may be down there too for Emerge Americas, which is a massive celebration of startups and a really great conference.
Yeah, and I assume that conference is probably in the Miami Beach Convention Center.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Freddie Peterson is an amazing member of our board and my board of the Board of Governors of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, and shout out to Freddie. But Freddie helps with everything from the Miami Beach Convention Center. So Freddie, if you're listening, and when you are listening, you got to make sure that you treat these gentlemen well and you give them all access during the conference.
Yeah, and a special shout out to
Like
Melissa
you're going back down to Miami,
as well, who really helps plan and put that conference on. She does a ton of great work down there.
But the beautiful thing also encouraging people to come down to Miami Beach is the same thing that we're saying now on Miami Beach and to the businesses on Miami Beach is South Florida in general is different than it was 20, 30 years ago, in the sense of at times it was you lived on Miami Beach and sort of you just stayed on Miami Beach, or you lived in Boca Raton and you just stayed in Boca Raton. But now with the Bright Line and commuting and really all of South Florida booming, there's a beautiful component of we're sort of like a mini New York now, as we have different little divisions and cities to South Florida. And it's amazing to encourage people to go from Boca to Miami Beach. And like we're telling all of our members on Miami Beach, don't just go ahead and sort of look at Miami Beach community as your only type of clientele and your patrons. Go over the seas now, go over the bridge and start branching out, because it's a beautiful thing of what's going on in South Florida now, and business is booming.
Yep, absolutely. It's a great time to be in South Florida, just like this time of year every year.
Especially with the weather.
I did notice you did Uber here, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, the benefit is you could jump in an Uber and get work done while you're traveling all the time, right? Often I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs saying, forget about driving places. You know, the amount of work that could be just done in the back of an Uber is phenomenal these days.
So especially when I took over as the chairman of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, have made a conscious effort of driving as little as possible, whether or not that's on the Bright Line or taking Ubers or whatever it may be. The reality is you can be so productive now in sitting while you're going ahead and transporting from one place to another, including of which I have a hotspot Wi-Fi, I have my laptop, or I'm taking calls. And I'm able now to be in Boca Raton and then be back in Miami Beach. But in the interim of traveling, I'm equally doing work and calling and troubleshooting things and speaking to businesses on Miami Beach. And I think that's the productive way, and that's the future.
Sure is. It sure is. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump to our Hot or Not segment of the show.
Look forward to it.
Look, Google is smart, but owls are wiser. Instead of spending an hour sifting through ads and clickbait BS, get the answers you need from qualified experts immediately. What is OWL? Think a best-of edition of Google, Cameo, and Clubhouse, all rolled into one app. OWL is an app where you can get advice through secure, private, live voice calls, tailored specifically to your questions, and all in real time. Need marketing or PR advice? OWL it. App or software development? OWL it. Healthcare, investing, social media, grant writing, education? OWL it. Coming soon. OWL, one-on-one with sports legends, singers, actors, celebrities, and more in real time. That's super exciting. Who? OWL. That's OWWLL. 2 W's for twice as wise. 2 L's because you'll really love it. OWL. Connect. Learn. Grow. Now available for Apple or Android. Download OWL today on the App Store on your device.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. That was the OWL commercial. And how cool is this? If this is your first time tuning in, you could call Richard sometime next week through the OWL app. All of our past guests go on there. They make themselves available. And when they do that, you'll get a notification or text message, and you call them for $1 and pick their brain about anything we're talking about today's episode. The only thing is you don't know when they're going to make themselves available. So you got to download the app, follow them to get that notification. And of course, first come, first serve, because Richard is not going to make himself available probably for much more than 30 minutes to an hour next week. So, of course, take him up on that opportunity when he does make himself available. Okay, so Richard, this segment is called Hot or Not. We're going to jump into a topic and dive deep into why it is hot or not currently.
Sounds good.
So let's look at Kevin. Look at me. Kevin wants to flip this to
Yeah, I've got an
over-under.
Exciting news.
2024. You go for it.
2024. Dr. Cox is no longer doing this tired, hot or not.
No, we're done.
He's completely done with it, right? So we're gonna shop and try out some new segments. But,
let's go legal or not legal. How about that?
I'm happy to do any on the fly. So whatever you want to call it, let's do it.
Yeah, so let's make this the What's Hot segment. And Richard, why don't you tell us, in your world, what's hot?
So what's hot right now on Miami Beach is, in general, there's the hottest component on Miami Beach is tourism coming into the beach. And you would think, well, why is that hotter than any time before?
Because global warming?
Well, that's funny. I like that one. The temperature is definitely hot, although it's nice right now. And it's a nice, good winter day in Miami. The hottest component on Miami Beach, though, from a tourism perspective, is really this post-COVID, boom. Miami and South Florida in general stayed open and pretty open, and that was a wonderful thing. But right now, I think people are re-energizing and refinding their love for travel. And we open our doors on Miami Beach to anybody, and we look forward to having all sorts of tourism on every single day. It is the backbone of all of Miami Beach. So what's hot right now is we're seeing tourism go ahead and uptick, and we want to make sure that our local businesses and our hospitality and our beds, as we call them, heads in beds, that everything's doing well on Miami Beach.
So I've got a question related to that. Are you also seeing a general uptick in international visitors? Because when I was just down there, anecdotally, I didn't do a ton of stuff, and I only spent one night, a couple days, and did those activities I referenced. But it seemed like there were a lot more international travelers speaking different languages than you typically see. We certainly have tourism in West Palm Beach and in Fort Lauderdale, but I think there are tendency to be a lot more international travelers. Is that the case? You see an uptick in that as well?
Yeah, and actually, I think that's probably part of the reason for why there was an uptick. Actually, during COVID, Miami Beach did fairly well in tourism because from a domestic standpoint, the doors of Miami, were open and people were still traveling here. But now that we're all going back to the swing of things and the everyday norm, we are really seeing an uptick in that international travel, which is always amazing and welcomed in Miami Beach. I mean, it is what makes us beautiful, is that it is so eclectic, and we have everyone coming from everywhere. I mean, that's the beauty of Miami Beach.
All right. What about on the day job side? Anything hot in terms of these dissolution arrangements? Any new agreement, new structures, new laws, regulatory changes? What's hot?
So I'll tell you that in South Florida in general, what's become super interesting, and we do very high-end, ultra high net worth dissolutions of marriages in general, because of the huge influx into the South Florida area of the Jeff Bezos of the world, and people coming and making their hedge funds and their billion-dollar companies headquartered in South Florida. That was never the case, for that matter, several years ago, but certainly not 10 or 20 years ago, where you may have a satellite office here, but now everyone's domesticating their businesses in Florida and also making their residency in Florida. Why is that important? When you're going through a dissolution of marriage in Florida, the way that you have jurisdiction, what does that mean? Where you can go ahead and file in Florida, what's called a petition for dissolution of marriage, has to deal with where your residence is. What does that require? That requires you being in Florida for the last 6 months or having a driver's license that doesn't have an expiration date within the last 6 months to prove that you are a resident of South Florida. That has been interesting because now you're having a lot of people who are truly moving to Florida and staying in Florida. So there has been an uptick in business in that sense.
Interesting.
How do they track that always? I always wondered, because when you have these ultra high network, it's a different, like me and Kevin, like we're in New York, we're in California, like you could track airline tickets, but when you have someone, that has their own airplane, right, and they're traveling all throughout the year, like how do they track that?
I'm smiling, and I took a pause there because the reality is you're speaking directly to a lot of what we litigate often, which is if you have homes throughout the world, or if you're, for example, a part of a band, or you're an actress or an actor and you're throughout the world, you don't really call something home because you're moving along every single day. So there are issues all the time, and where it's a debate over where the proper jurisdiction is. For example, it's filed in Europe, and we say that it should have been filed in Palm Beach, or it should have been filed in Miami. And the courts, and the state courts, will have to make a decision on whether or not there's a residency requirement that's met for purposes of jurisdictions. And then oftentimes the federal court gets involved simply based off of the sole issue on where the proper place for filing and jurisdiction is for enforcement purposes. So let's say, for example, that it was filed somewhere over in Europe, but we take the position that it should have been filed in Miami or in Palm Beach or in Broward. There can be a conflict issue that then is heard in federal court to make sure and to determine if there was an order that was entered abroad, is it going to be enforced here in Florida? And it is an issue specifically in the high net worth dissolutions of marriage of a determination of jurisdiction.
I had a feeling. Right.
You were spot on.
Once you have your own airplane, it's not exactly like, oh, I'm 6 months one day and then I booked the plane tickets. because I work with a lot of retirees, and that's what they do, right? They look at the calendar, and it's a lot easier in the event they get audited. But an audit, of the nature that you're speaking about, it could get extremely complex, right? So
It is, and that really circles back to the beginning part of this conversation is oftentimes you should go to someone who handles that type of work on an everyday basis as opposed to like your local friend or, your neighborhood attorney. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but at the end of the day, if you're handling these things on a day in and day out basis, it becomes a lot more clear on the proper path forward because you're doing it every day.
okay, I want to talk a little bit about just you becoming your own entrepreneur.
Sure.
Right? Lots of times people go become lawyers. You went to Michigan or Michigan State?
So to ask someone to
Interesting topic.
That's
I just saw Michigan. I looked at your LinkedIn earlier today, and I saw Michigan.
So first off, I'm glad and proud to say it's the University of Michigan.
There we go.
Go
Okay.
Blue. I will be at the national championship on Monday, and I am super excited about it. But yes, when you ask someone who went to the University of Michigan, whether or not it's Michigan State or Michigan, those are sometimes fighting words.
Ooh. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Learned something new today.
Yep.
So going, to your entrepreneurship journey.
Sure.
Right. Often people, become a lawyer, they start working for a firm, they get a nice W-2 salary, they get nice bonuses, and they're comfortable. They don't ever want to, become the person making the decision about Comcast or AT&T, right? Or getting a 5-year lease, a 10-year lease. You made that decision to do that. So tell us some of the hot things that have occurred since going this direction and things that have not been so hot. And how long have you been, the founder of a firm?
Sure. So first off, that's a great question because it's true. There's different types of attorneys, and it's no knock on one or the other. It's just there's certain paths for certain, attorneys and certain paths for others. And the reality is you're right. Oftentimes you can get a cushion W-2 salary and you can become complacent in that, or you can just say, I'm confident and happy with what I have there. And you don't want to take on, more things outside of just doing your legal work and getting paid your everyday salary. But I really do need to give credit to my two mentors when I started right outside of law school. And it was my first firm that I started with, but it was Alan Kluger and Abby Kaplan. They're both extremely entrepreneurial, business driven, really good attorneys, but also from day one when I was in diapers as an attorney, basically taught me that there's two ways of practicing law. Number one is you have to be an amazing attorney. I hope that I do that on an everyday basis. And it's called the practice of law because every day I'm practicing to be an amazing attorney. But the second component, which they definitely taught me and I'm super thankful of, is that in order to go ahead and be an entrepreneurial attorney, from day one, you should realize that there's another component of the practice of law, which is running a business. And they got me out there, including going to the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce and Mount Sinai Foundation and other organizations on Miami Beach in order to get into the community. And they made it very clear to me, and they were right. No one's sending you business tomorrow unless it's friends or family early on. You're just not there yet, but start making the relationships. And when you make the relationships early on in your career, those relationships, those people will grow with you. Those people get older with you. And as they do, your referral base really grows from there. So I do thank them for that because even sitting here today, I'm starting to see the fruits of all of that. But why I did it is because I'm happy to be a lawyer. I love being a lawyer, but I've always been, and you said at the beginning, it's about street smarts too. I've always had that in me too. And I didn't want to just be the person only behind the desk. I wanted to be the out front person. And I found a way of, within the practice of law, finding enjoyment for myself, which is trial attorney in the courtroom, in depositions, being the front person. I enjoy all moments of that. I love speaking for a living. But then there's a component of being able to manage the firm, the business, the everyday decisions, as you were saying, of, unfortunately hiring and firing. And hopefully in our firm, we do more on the hiring, but also figuring out the leases and looking at, the profit and loss statements and seeing on an annualized basis, are we turning, profits like we are? Are we being fair to our clients and our rates and things of those sorts as well? That's the juices that keep me flowing every single morning. And then I take as a different part of the plate the component of running the Chamber of Commerce as the chairman, which also gets me excited on the entrepreneurial end. And then I'll cap it off with this. In order to be an entrepreneur and be good at what you're doing on an everyday basis, not every day is beautiful. There is rain sometimes in Florida. And by rain, I mean not just making it rain, I mean actual gloomy days. But you have to find something that makes you happy too. And I have 4 boys and I have a beautiful wife, Shawnee. And I am the coach of all my boys' baseball team. And why I say that and how it ties in on the entrepreneurial side is baseball's always been important to me. It was my sport when I was younger, and now getting to be my boys' coach. They're, Spencer, Shane, Sammy, and Simon. Simon's only one. He's not there yet, but the other three, that makes me super happy. And by being happy and being, filled and having your plate filled, it makes you a better entrepreneur. It makes you a better manager of your law firm. It makes you a better chairman of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. So I always tell people, find that thing that makes you happy and gives you joy. Make sure it's in your weekly basis, in your routine, because it will help out on the days that are a little bit tougher.
And you just stay busy, and then when the fluffy stuff comes, you don't pay attention to it.
Keep the plate full.
Right?
Why not?
Keep it full.
Why not?
I get the sense. I've seen that so much starting Owl, right? Here I'm financial advisor, now, tech founder, and I didn't see a lot of things coming my way. And some of it comes back to law, actually. Like people like send you emails about terms and conditions, and then you're trying to, figure it out on your own, because of course, like as a startup, you want to hire good talent, but also there's times where there's too much coming at you at times, and you just have to make decisions quick, live by them. Sometimes you make wrong decisions, of course, and you look back, you're like, ooh, maybe I should have hired an attorney to answer that one email. And because it went a direction you didn't think it was going to go. You thought it was going to be one quick email settled and done, but all of a sudden it's coming back with more and more emails. And then you're like, put my foot in my mouth. Right. So it's interesting. Just Kevin's over here dancing, it looks like. We're going to take a quick commercial break here on our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump into our Plead the Fifth segment of the show.
Step into our state-of-the-art innovation lab and create your digital future. Oz uses cutting-edge technology and 22 years of industry knowledge to enhance customer experience through digital innovation in a variety of expertise. Oz is a leading global consulting company whose services and solutions are trusted by startup, midsize, and even Fortune 500 companies. Get to know more about Oz's Salus, a mobile solution bringing us back to max capacity, and their latest solution, Rainmaker, saving insurance companies years of work. To learn more about Oz and their exciting technologies, visit followoz.com. That's FOLLOWOZ.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, you catch all these amazing episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com. And every single week, we are streaming live right around 2 o'clock on our Facebook account, as well as our Instagram account these days. Instagram just started to allow going live, so we will do that there as well. Okay, so Richard, on this segment of the show, it is called Plead the Fifth. So we're assuming
This should be
that
easy.
you will not say I plead the fifth, because you're really good at getting around that, being that is your occupation. Okay, but be careful if you plead the fifth 2 times. Unfortunately, Kevin's not going to invite you back to the FAU campus ever again. Is that right, Kevin?
No, of course not. We're
Okay.
always welcome
Okay.
here.
It's a tough game to play for an attorney. I got to be careful here.
You could
There's,
just- you could do it
there's
one
ethical
time. You could do it
obligations,
once. You could do
gentlemen.
it
Let's
once.
let's keep it above the desk.
All right, Jason, you want to kick things off, or you want me to?
You love this segment, so I'll let you kick things off.
All right. So, what is the largest settlement amount you've ever been involved with in a case where you've represented the client?
So obviously not going to discuss anything related to clients in the sense of revealing any confidences, because there's the attorney-client privilege. But I can certainly tell you that we've settled cases of the billions of dollars before. We currently are negotiating cases of billions of dollars before, and that makes it interesting. And that goes back to everything that we discussed before of really you need to be able to handle that type of complex global settlement in an effort of making sure you're getting the best for the client.
All right. Well, let's get
He
personal.
didn't plead the fifth.
All
He
right,
got
well,
around it.
Let's get personal then. We'll leave the clients aside.
Let's do it.
I want that plead the fifth quick today. So obviously practice matters, and you get better at different ages and stuff. But when it comes to sports, there's also just raw talent. So which one of your sons is the most talented baseball player? Let's hear it. I'm sure the others will be disappointed, but which one's got the most talent? You're the coach.
This is a great one. This is unbelievable, and I'm going to try not to plead the fifth. And so I will say at his age, my son Shane seems to be super promising. And Shane, I'm proud of you. Not only is he playing T-ball this year, but he's playing coach pitch. He's playing up in his division just based off of being a 6-year-old. But Spencer, you're an amazing baseball player too.
Oh, nice. All right. I
Okay,
thought
what
that
do
would
you
get
do?
him.
What do you do? Shane doesn't get into University of Michigan, but he gets into Michigan State with a full ride.
Woo!
What do? Do you talk him out of it?
That's
And that's his number one choice. He goes, Dad, that was my number 2 on the list, and I didn't get into University of Michigan. Do you stay out of it? Do you let him go, or you talk him out of it?
That's funny. So that has come up already because Michigan's other arch rival is Ohio State. We beat them this year. And Shane, who is a avid sports fan, said to me, Dad, what would happen if I wanted to go to Ohio State? And I said, anywhere but Ohio State. But I probably should have said anywhere but Ohio State and Michigan State. So Shane, you can go anywhere you want in the world, just not those 2 schools. And that goes for all my other boys.
Well, you
too.
could say that if you do go there, you have to pay for it on your own, right?
I think I'd even pay for them not to go there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, it runs deep between Michigan State and Ohio
They
State.
may hold that against you one day.
I-
They get the
I
segment
know.
of
Well,
the
now you
shrimp
guys
thing.
have
Like, Dad, I'm gonna go. Give me 50 grand.
Oh, man. Pretty open book. Those were some hard balls
Those
here
were.
today.
Listen, as a lawyer and a litigator, you get drilled with questions by judges all the time. I got to answer them. I can't tell the judge I plead the 5th.
What was the most ridiculous itemized item someone asked for? And I don't know if this is going too deep, but it's kind of general, right? I see a lot of TikTok videos and they shared like things, about.
No, I can tell
I
you.
think a big rapper right now is going through something, and actually it's Beats, Dr. Dre is
Sure.
going through, and there was an itemized item on there, and it was crazy, what they were asking for something particular. She's asking for $2 million a month. But something in
Sure.
there was something like 400,000 for X or clothing, I think it was. And somebody
Yeah.
was like, how can you spend that much money on clothing?
It's interesting when you're dealing with complex dissolutions and there's, tens, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars being broken up and moved around, and really complicated trusts and family offices and businesses being moved from one column to another, which is called equitable distribution in Florida, of what ends up holding up the deal or the global settlement agreement, in you could have never anticipated that would be where someone sort of drew their line in the sand. But one of the most interesting ones was from a animal perspective, which we all love our animals, but when you're moving that kind of money around, that there was an allowance that the animal should be receiving on a monthly basis, including caretakers for the animals. And don't get me wrong, I'm an animal lover, particularly love dogs, but to hold up hundreds of millions of dollars in a transaction over that was interesting. But we worked that one out, and we try to work out everything.
Wow. Well, that's all I've got. If pitting his kids against one another wouldn't do it, I don't think I'd get him to plead the 5th today.
Hopefully my wife talks to me tonight. I love you, Shawnee.
Okay. Well, Richard, thank you for joining us on our first episode of the new year in 2024 on the Shrimp Tank. For our audience listening, if they want to chat with you, of course, they could do it on Owl next week, but other ways they can get in touch with you. What's your Instagram handle? What's your LinkedIn, your website?
Sure. Richard.I.Segal. And then you can just type in Richard Segal on Miami Beach. You'll see me on LinkedIn. You'll see me on Facebook. You can look me up on my law firm. I'm accessible anytime, anywhere. I'm here for everybody. Don't think for 2 seconds that I won't respond to you. I will. I'll go ahead and make some time to speak to anybody. It's what I do. I think that's a part of being chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. Doesn't matter if you're on Miami Beach. I'm here to help everybody. I had people who helped me along the way, and I'm here to do the same.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us here on the Shrimp Tank. Everybody listening, we'll be back next Wednesday right around 2 p.m. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. An absolute pleasure.
Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not